Good afternoon to all the participants of today's workshop. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Kristin Raudsepp, and I'm Director General of the Estonian State Agency of Medicines. And I'm co-chairing together with Noel Vation the task force on availability. So the availability has been one of my special interests for years, and we have done a lot of work together in the network, and there is also even more ahead. But I can tell you that when we started, there were only fewer of us who talked about the problem of availability in the European Union, and even more, it was even said that it is the problem of some small markets only, so it has changed totally now. All the member states, small and big, admit the problem and try to find the solutions. And even more, the pharmaceutical industry, who has primary responsibility for continuity of supply of medicines, admit the problem and start very good cooperation with agencies. Today I would like to update you about the HMA-EMA task force on availability of authorized medicines. Can you please give me the next slide? So, first of all, the history of this task force goes back to 2016. And this task force is composed of EMA, HMA, heads of medicines agencies, and European Commission representatives, as well as the chairs of CMDH and CMDVET. And as I told, the task force is co-chaired by EMA and HMA, and we are preparing dual reports on annual basis to the heads of medicines agencies and to the EMA management board. And we are having steering committee and 3 thematic working groups to deal with special topics. And you see them, the working groups on the screen. They involve marketing of authorized medicinal products, supply chain disruption, and a 3rd working group going on with communication. And the aim of this task force is to assess reasons for non-marketing of medicines, establish definitions and metrics to enhance shortage management, to improve sharing of information among EU regulatory authorities, and to develop communication strategies within the network and with other healthcare actors. And the scope of our work is about medicines which are authorized but not marketed, and the medicines affected by supply disruptions. Next slide, please. So, quickly to go through what are our main achievements. First of all, the guidance on detection and notification of shortages of medicinal products for marketing authorization holders. And it was really a very big work. Lots of people were involved, and for the first time in European Union, we got to the definition of the shortage, which was also important. And this guidance was adopted in June 2019. So the second achievement I would like to point out is the good practice guidance for communication to the public since availability issues, which was also adopted in June 2019. I can also mark that in November 2018 we had the multi-stakeholder meeting workshop at EMA premises, and I'm sure lots of you also participated in this meeting. And the report of this meeting was also published later. So the fourth thing I would like to say is the document adopted in November last year is the key information for shortage management and monitoring by EU regulators, the metrics document, we say. And the next thing is, first of all, is the SPOC system, the single point of contact, which already Monica told you briefly, and I will say also some words, which has started some time ago. And of course, the links to all the shortage catalogs from member states, and so everybody can find easily the links to the information about shortages in special member states at the EMA. So they are available now. Maybe not in the most comfortable way, but still it is there. Next slide, please. So some words about the SPOC network. I don't want to repeat Monica anymore, but really I have to say that it is important and a very valuable platform to share information. And it is crucial to say that such platform did not exist before. So at the moment it is there, and it proved very well during this COVID crisis also. So here are some points to show that the SPOC network worked also during the COVID outbreak and shared the information. And as you already heard, at the moment we are having also the iSPOC system, which includes the industry and is specifically dedicated to the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide, please. So what is going on now? This is the plan we had in our work plan, and which was agreed. First, we had some delays due to the Brexit, but at the moment we can say that the current COVID-19 crisis is impacting the delivery of some tasks, and therefore a delay to the planned pilots is needed, and some of the pilots will probably start in the beginning of next year. But going them through, so the SPOC network pilot phase 2 will go on with a delay. So an important pilot with together with marketing authorization holders to work on the guidance which was adopted will take place. Then the pilot of metric measurement and the monitoring of implementation of good practice guidance on communication across European economy area. So what else do we plan? We are planning to finalize the survey to member states and withdrawal procedures. And when all the guidelines will be adopted, we plan to issue a EU regulators manual with the aim to consolidate the output of the task force on all availability issues. And an important thing which is in our work plan is the development of concepts paper on best practices to prevent shortages. And here we also see a collaboration of patients and healthcare professionals. And we hope very much that soon we can meet again, and we will have the follow-up to our multi-stakeholder workshop, probably in the beginning of next year. Next slide, please. What I have to say is that HMA and EMA are preparing the new strategy. to 2025. And at the moment, there have been selected 6 strategic focus areas, and I have marked green number 1 and number 5, which both deal with availability and shortages issues. So a very big discussion is going on at the moment. What the network of regulatory authorities need to do during next 5 years, together with all the stakeholders to help with availability issues. Next slide, please. Some consultations have already taken place lately, also with Patients and Consumers Working Party and Healthcare Professionals Working Party. Right in the moment, collaboration is going on with the European Commission. As you know, they are preparing the pharmaceutical strategy, so the cooperation is important in this field. And we have planned that the final draft will be ready by mid-June, and then it will be presented for endorsement by HMA and EMA Management Board, and after it, a launch of 2-month public consultation will take place. And we hope to finalize the strategy at the end of this year. So probably if we have the possibility to have workshop together with all the stakeholders in the beginning of next year, it will be a very good opportunity to update you all the things we plan to do in the field of availability during the next 5 years based on the new strategy already. Next slide, please. Thank you everybody for listening, and now I'm giving the word back.
Thank you very much, Christine, also for this concise presentation. Since there are not that many questions except technical issues, that I have for you the concept paper. So that, of course, for us as the 2 working parties, quite important. Do you have any idea on how we can help or participate in the concept paper, practically?
You mean the strategy?
Yes.
Yeah, so as there will be a 2-month consultation period, hopefully starting already during summer. So everybody's input is very much weighted.
Yes. I see that Mary McCarthy wants to ask a question. Maybe you can just type it into the chat. In the meantime, again, there is a question from Donald Singer. What is your committee's role in resolving what we heard earlier as political dimensions to overcoming difficulties in transferring medicines between member states? Is this already on the agenda of the Commission or the Parliament?
Yeah, as you heard before, it is a difficult situation, not easy to overcome, but our task force has discussed it, but at the moment we haven't prepared anything concrete to discuss how one member state can give over medicines to other member states. But as the network is working very closely with each other, and the SPOC network is exchanging the information on the medicines available in one or another member state. So let's hope the solution will be found. And I know that European Commission has started or is starting very soon the survey on the root causes of shortages. So maybe based on that, something will be built up how to solve the situation between the member states.
Okay. We have to keep the time a bit. I suggest that we ask you one or two more questions, and then we have to go on. There is a question from Jean-Georges. The involvement of the UK after the Brexit.
Yeah. So we are working with the colleagues from UK, but at the moment they are not part of this anymore. But which was the thing I told about Brexit is that we prepared for the issue of shortages in other member states because of the Brexit. So it was something we discussed, and we did a lot to inform the companies to prepare in time to be ready for the Brexit and not to leave any country without medicines. It was the issue of Brexit in our work plan.
Okay, thank you very much. So maybe Mary is connected now. She can try to ask her question, and I suggest that we postpone Charlotte's question for the next part after the update on our collection practices. Mary, are you there?
Thank you, Uli. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Medicine appears to be a mismatch between the availability of medicine and the demand for it. I had initially thought it was all my fault. It was due to Brexit and the fact that the UK had decided to come out of the EU, and that was why medicine shortages were happening. To other European doctors, it seems to be there in every country. I know that COVID has exacerbated the problem, that things will settle down and that there will no longer be medicine shortages, that we go away with this part of the EMA. Or do you think this is going to be a permanent problem?
Thank you for the question. I'm not sure I can answer you in a very positive way. Yes, the shortages are there, and the situation will not be cleared totally. We as a regulatory authorities network, are doing what we can to avoid the situation going worse. But the medicines are in the hand of marketing authorization holders, of the manufacturers, and this is all very, very multidimensional. What are the reasons? So it can only be solved together with everybody, starting from the producers of active pharmaceutical ingredients, ending with pharmacies. So everybody has to work. And what I have said, it seems to me that without changes to the legislation, basing only on the cooperation, we can't solve the issue. So something has to be done also with the legislation.
Okay, thank you very much. Noel, do you want to add another comment, or yes?
Well, I think to come back to what also Christine is saying, indeed we have had shortages for ages. The problem of COVID-19 has made things worse. In certain settings, we mentioned ICU medicines. There will be knock-on effects. I see another comment here made by other participants. Also for non-COVID-19 treatments. So there needs to be a kind of a global response, how we deal with shortages as such, and the initiatives undertaken at the level of the European Parliament with the report which is being discussed. You have the European Commission with its pharma strategy, where probably they will address issues in relation to shortage. There is indeed, EMA has become much more engaged in all this, although we do not have really a legal role, a legal remit. So we are already working quite a lot outside our legal remit. And I saw a question, what about the EMA and its role? Well, if the EMA is giving a more coordinating role in this respect, that's all fine. It would be better that is legally enshrined, that it's clear about the responsibilities and the resources. Let's not forget that what you're currently confronted with as a request from the member states and from the institutions to become more involved in the context of shortages, certainly in the COVID-19 situation, we had to reprioritize a lot of our activities and to reallocate resources in order to be able to cope with this particular initiative. So if there is a willingness in order for the agency to become involved, yes, but let's be clear and transparent about it in terms of what that role is, what our responsibilities are, what resources we will have in order to deal with that in a proper way.
Thank you very much for this comment. A final word back to Christine. Christine, thank you very much. You want to add anything to your presentation?
Probably not at the moment. So let's listen the next presentation, and maybe then we can discuss again.
Very good. So we will join the discussion. So thank you very much to both of you for this update. And we now move on to the second part, which is the update on the collection of practices and recommendations from the patients, consumers, and healthcare professions. As you know, we are all involved, and we also talked about this in March, into collecting the data. And Piotr Kolczynski from the CPME will present on behalf of the PCWP and HCPWP co-rapporteurs. Piotr, we can see you. I hope we can also hear you.
I hope so too. My name is Piotr Kolczynski, and this afternoon I present on behalf of the co-rapporteurs the working party's input to the concept note on best practices to prevent shortages. Thank you very much. Since February, the work on this topic. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you, I see. So since February, the work on this topic is being led by 4 co-rapporteurs, Charlotte, Christian, Francois, and Jan, who, following the last joint meeting in March, have contacted the working party's members to collect examples, stories, and good practices on prevention of medicine shortages. Over almost a month, 12 organizations provided us with their feedback that included both existing practices and policy recommendations on shortages prevention. All the gathered information has been analyzed and classified to provide the task force with the most comprehensive and clearest overview. The most generally, it's been divided into 2 separate tables, one on existing practices and the one on policy recommendations. These are the 2 documents that you've already received. Now I'll show you how these documents are structured and how they can be read. Within each of them, 3 categories have been created to group the gathered actions based on their type, depending on whether they focus directly on prevention, on communication, or rather they are related to management. Each of the received examples and recommendations have been cataloged, classified in detail to stress, firstly, what a given information relates to, be it reporting, early notification, contingency plans, or procurement practices, to name just a few. Then a description is provided, followed by an information from which working party's member this information has been received, within which document it can be found, and from which year this document is. Further, you find an information on what is a given action scope, whether it's applicable at EU or at national level, and whether it applies to all or only to some EU countries. At the end, impact or expected impact of the present proposed action has been described as well. Having said that on methodology and on how the received input has been structured, now I would like to show you its content. Firstly, and the most importantly, we've received 25 examples of existing practices. They vary and address different areas of medicine shortages. To give you a brief overview of what kind of practices are included, we've chosen a couple of them to present you now. Firstly, a recent example from the current pandemic and action undertaken by hospital pharmacists who have been preparing some products in risk of short supply due to increasing demand in clinical trials for COVID-19 and off-label use. A different included practice goes some years back when patient groups requested hospital pharmacies to continue manufacturing Mexelitin after marketing authorization holders announced to withdraw it for commercial reasons. The same group also co-founded a phase 3 clinical trial to extend the authorization to non-dystrophic myotonia. The third example we've chosen refer to 3 cancer drugs that have been withdrawn from one of member states' market and then brought back on it, but with much higher price. In this case, a national consumer organization has complained to an antitrust authority accusing the marketing authorization holder of abusing its dominant position. Subsequently, this pharmaceutical company has been penalized for its action. Another current practice from national level stresses efficacy of early automatic reporting and real-time measurements of shortages done by healthcare professionals. Then an example from the Netherlands shows advantage of the creation of medicine shortages coordination groups that, for example, can locate and acquire raw material that can be used to produce drugs for which shortages are anticipated. The last existing practice we want to present you now concerns a creation of a national registry for immunoglobulins uses for which there are no alternatives, and setting up an alliance of patient organizations advocating for good prescription practices and proper calculation of those needed. As you can see, the scope of the compiled practices is broad and includes actions being taken by different healthcare professionals, patients, and consumers. Many more of them are to be found in the table. On top of this, we received also policy recommendations, and these are grouped in the second document. The second document has been prepared with 17 policy recommendations provided by the working parties members. As they haven't been in the center of our focus, I wouldn't like to present them in detail now, but let me briefly mention that among many others, they include a proposal of a development of harmonized national systems for reporting medicine shortages and a user-friendly database accessible by all stakeholders. Another recommendation discusses a need for clarification and strengthening of current obligations of pharma companies. Another example proposes amendment of procurement practices to focus on more criteria than just price during tendering procedures and allowing more than one winner for tenders of pharmaceutical products. And then the last example we want to present you now suggests a creation of an EU joint action to further support the exchange of best practices among member states and to help develop common prevention measures. This is a very telegraphic overview of what kinds of input we've received as of 17th of April, and we would like to now share with the task force. However, we still consider these documents dynamic, and all of the members who would still like to provide their feedback are very much invited to do so. Based on this already received and future input, the working parties will work together with technical working groups on the concept paper. Moreover, there are two other topics we would like to invite you to discuss. Let me briefly introduce them now, and then I will present them more in detail. Firstly, we want to bring to your attention and discuss with you the ongoing and forthcoming initiatives on medicine shortages currently being undertaken by different EU institutions. We would like to invite you to the discussion on the concrete proposals they include and on possible working parties' involvement in them. But before we do that, we'd like to remind you also that the working parties are revising their 2013 common position on supply shortages of medicines. And given these proposals of different EU institutions being now made, we would like this paper to already take them into consideration and position itself towards them. But these are the two areas we think can require further action from our side. And at the end, we would like to pose the question whether a dedicated follow-up call or a workshop on medicine shortages should be organized in 2021, next year, to provide us with another opportunity to discuss these topics. As mentioned, we'd like to remind you about the revision of our common position. In this case, similarly as in case of prevention of medicine shortages, we still invite you to share with us feedback on the impact of shortages and practices or recommendations focused on their management. Its content is still not defined, and there are many potential areas to cover. Some of them are listed now at the slides. In fact, these are the proposals included in the European Parliament's own initiative report, the draft of which is being currently discussed. And as mentioned, we believe the common position could provide our opinion on this and other topics. And also, speaking of different initiatives undertaken at EU level, there is, besides the own initiative report of the European Parliament, regarding which now the first draft is being discussed. Tomorrow there is a deadline for tabling amendments, and it will be voted in ENVI committee on 24th of June. Voting in plenary is planned to take place in July. But besides them, there are predominantly two documents, two European Commission initiatives on medicine shortages expected.
Well, I think the presentation was close to finalize. I think he wanted to make mention of the Commission's pharmaceutical strategy as well as the EU Medicines Regulatory Network strategy, which also Christine made reference in her presentation. And I think, can we go? There is an additional slide.
Cost action. Yeah.
Cost action. And next. And then the stamps discussions on shortages as well. So I think Piotr, it's clear.
Yeah. So Piotr, if you can hear us, please try to reconnect in the meantime. But I think we can still start the discussion at this point. I think the presentation was very clear and fits very well with what we heard from Christine first. If I may, to start the discussion with, if I may make a comment more than a question, I thought what was really helpful to start with is that we now have an inventory or a catalog of potential actions that can be taken in various cases. So I think that was very helpful to see that different problems may require different solutions, and they put together these various solutions very nicely, and then this will lead to a higher level harmonized action and paper. While we are waiting for Piotr to reconnect, we have comments from Piotr, you're there. Can you try to speak again?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great.
The comments have been disconnected. I'm very sorry, I wasn't aware of it.
Thanks very much for this clear presentation. We thought this was very helpful. Maybe you can already jump into the discussion. I think Jan de Belli and Kati Apostolidis asked questions. Have you seen them on the chat in the meantime?
Mm-hmm. I don't know where they start.
Yeah, okay.
I think Kathy, and I think Ansel as well, they were mentioning about making this, share this with the working parties, but right. Just to confirm that this is the case. This group is working maybe for efficiency, but everything will go back to the working parties and there will be a full sharing of this information before this is fed to the task force, let's say. But maybe Piotr, you want to comment on it.
Yes, I agree. That was our approach. I don't have any more information on that. Maybe one of co-rapporteurs could share some additional information. Yeah.
Well, at this point, we can thank the co-rapporteurs, by the way. So I think this was a great piece of work in a short period of time, so very helpful. Maybe Christine, if she is still there, can make a comment on how this participation will fit into the task force activities.
Better now?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Sorry. So thank you for this presentation. I really liked the work and the ideas you are providing. So many of them are really needing political decision. So it is exactly what I told, that we can do a lot exchanging information, having a very good network and do what we can. But, our hands are not able to do everything. So these are political recommendations and need some decisions. So I hope that these things will be done and we can solve at least some availability issues which are happening every day in every member state, influencing us. For example, I read your one measure, enhancement and enforcement of current obligations of pharma companies. May I ask you, do you also see something about the role of wholesalers? Because we always talk about marketing authorization holders and manufacturers, but we see also problems which could be solved on the level of wholesalers. So maybe some new obligations and restrictions also for them. Have you thought about it?
I can only clarify that indeed, in the case of this call for clarification and strengthening of the legislation, we meant the Community Code Directive, but maybe I could give the floor to co-rapporteurs regarding wholesalers.
Yeah, but that's a helpful suggestion. Thank you very much, Christine. I see that there is a lot of discussion going on between the co-rapporteurs on the chat. So maybe one of them can take the microphone. Françoise and Jan raised their hands. So, yes?
I'm on, François speaking, if you want.
Yeah, okay. Welcome.
Christine, this is about your question about the wholesaler. I think the only aspect which was discussed, I'm not sure there is any consensus of it on it, but was, and it's not part of this inventory of actions, but that was discussed in other forums, was maybe to disconnect the role of wholesaler from the role of re-exporter. That would ensure that the wholesaler would have the responsibility to supply the quantity of product which was ordered by the national healthcare system, and as they would not be able anymore to re-export this quantity outside of the country, would maybe protect the national market. Whereas when wholesalers can also have the role to re-export medicines, they can be tempted to take part of the supply aimed at the national market and re-export it to another member state. I think that was proposed. Some say it would not solve the problem, but it's food for thought maybe.
Yeah, thank you very much for this comment. Charlotte is raising her hand in the meantime. Charlotte, please. Yes, you can add a comment. Go on.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can, Charlotte.
Okay, excellent. Okay. No, just to add very briefly, just to make sure that we all understand what the remit of our work was. It was to collect good practices and proposals from organizations part of the working parties. So which means that the proposal which have been collected and mentioned also are not our proposals, other working group. So I believe that the remark which has been made about wholesalers is very interesting. But so what we collected reflects the position of the member organizations, and indeed maybe wholesalers were not at the center of most recommendations, but that's certainly food for thought. I also agree with Ansel, maybe also a guidance of the Commission on parallel trade and what can be done, possible restriction would be useful, but that's a very personal opinion.
Yeah, thank you. Very useful.
Yeah, if I may, just to comment on that, I think we will pass this comment to the Commission, because I think it's a valid comment that we would like them to, in the context of the task force, we can share that with them. And maybe just to add, because, all this work that you are doing, of course, it has several directions. One of them is to contribute to this reflection paper, which is done in collaboration with the thematic working group 2 and 3 of the task force. And hopefully, despite the impact on COVID, we can progress the work in the second part of the year. But then we welcome also the update of your position paper, which in a way, it will be feeding as well directly to the work of the task force. And hopefully it coincides very much with this workshop we are talking, where we can all together discuss the findings and the new position that hopefully you are able to update. So I think it's very timely, all this work, and hopefully there is a good capacity to implement and incorporate all this feedback into the final outcomes of the task force. And I think it's very good Christine is here to maybe push this forward.
Jan de Belli should now be reconnected. Let's try one more time. Jan, are you there? Difficult.
Otherwise, we can follow up in writing. I think we have to wrap up because otherwise.
Yeah, but we are in time now. That's great. So I thank all the speakers for this session. I think from the point of our joint working parties, it's very good to see a very practical project that will have an impact. So that's also nice. So thank you very much to everybody who contributed. And then, of course, also to Christine. Thank you very much, Piotr. And then also to Christine, of course, and to Noel for their very valuable contribution. I think this is a core activity, and we will follow up on it.